in India. I'm going to hand over this morning to Dr. Colin Miles, who's Head of Industrial Biotechnology and Clean Growth at the Biotechnology and Biological Sciences Research Council in the UK. And he's going to say a few words of welcome to you all this morning.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone, to this meeting. For those people in the UK, it's a good morning from me. For those people in India, it's a good afternoon. My name's Colin Miles. I get to be Head of Advanced Manufacturing and Clean Growth at the Biotechnology and Biological Sciences Research Council. And I have about 10 years of experience of working with India in the area of biotechnology and bioenergy, particularly in most recently in our activities in the Industrial Waste Challenge funded by the Newton programme. It's my duty to welcome you to this launch event covering bioenergy technologies for net zero transitions. And I'd particularly like to welcome Dr. Sundeep Sarin, who's Head of International Cooperation at DBT, to this meeting. You're very welcome, sir, and I hope you enjoy the experience. So the report itself is that of a scoping study that identifies priorities and pathways for innovation in bioenergy activities. Now, the report was commissioned by UKRI and UKRI India to examine those opportunities with the Department of Biotechnology in India. It is in fact the product of 3 online events which were held in February and March that took place between members of the community covering academia, business and policy makers between the UK and India. Now, the report itself, which we're going to hear a little bit more about over the next hour or two, covers 7 key areas or themes and identifies the further developments that could take place for collaborative activities and involves covering the scope and gaps for those future interactions. And those are in line with the aspirations which were identified in COP26 and also in our shared net zero activities. And I hope will form the basis for further collaborative working between the UK and India in the coming months and years. Now, before I hand over, a few words of thanks, particularly to all of those people who contributed to the events and the construction of the report itself, and in particular, those people who led the 7 key areas, along with the organiser of this event, and also the people who have been responsible for editing the final version of the report that you will be seeing. Now, I very much hope you'll enjoy the meeting, and I hope it will pave the way for some future interactions between the UK and India in the very important area of net zero bioenergy. I'm going to hand over now to Bhavika, who's going to take you through the key report findings and will cover the next 2 hours of activity. So you're very welcome. I hope you enjoy it. I look forward to seeing what happens next. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I'm Bhavika Rathi. A very pleasant morning and a good afternoon to everyone here in the event. I am Bhavika. I'm an independent researcher who has been employed on this project to coordinate background data and information on relevant research in India and the UK to support report development, writing, and dissemination. The approach used for the process was primarily divided into 4 steps. The first one was scoping and reviewing, in which we identified the key research stakeholders. The second one was engaging and prioritizing, in which we engaged with the research community stakeholders via an online questionnaire as well as a virtual interview, a virtual event. The third one was delving and examining, in which UK and Indian researchers were recruited to collaborate to find the key collaborative opportunities, and further these were presented to the funders. The last one was examining the existing knowledge, the knowledge gaps, the research synergies, and key collaborative opportunities. These were tested and recommendations were developed among the focus groups. The last one was synthesis of all of these outcomes in a final report. The aim of this project, the aim of the scoping project was to get background information and data on the existing research activities, schemes, and policies in both the countries, rather than getting a comprehensive survey. Let's start with bioenergy landscape in India. So the primary research funders in India could be the government of India or private companies, the research scholars, as well as faculties of India have several sources of funders. The most common one is the university, which in turn gets their funding from various governmental organizations. Some of these are SERV, MNRE, DST, and many more. The most used means of funding is project specific. The principal investigator and co-principal investigator can submit their research proposal and hence find funding. All of these organizations have in past proven to collaborate and engage in several bioenergy related projects. For example, MNRE recently funded an IIT Delhi project which involved development of a suitable pre-treatment system for paddy straw disintegration for biogas generation and for commercialization of the technology. Similarly, DST has also proven to invest in several bioenergy related projects. The other means of funding is via scholarships and fellowships, the one which is used commonly by SERV. Moving on, the key research programs in India is primarily currently driven by the government of India and its initiatives and platforms like MNRE, DBT, and many others. These governmental organizations are working on tons of projects, whether it is on biogas or any other bioenergy related technology. For example, the DBT IOC plant is currently working on the first continuous steam explosion pilot plant and extractor system. It has successfully incorporated the project. Similarly, the Sardar Swaran Singh Institute is working on biofuel and biogas cooking stoves. The government of India has also launched several schemes and made funding commitments for different projects to address climate change and the need to shift to renewable and alternate energy. For example, it has introduced biomass-based cogeneration in sugar mills and other industries. It has also introduced the National Biofuel Policy in 2018 and the Sustainable Alternative towards Affordable and Transformation. Moving on, the major research institutes in India are also working on, could you move to the previous slide, please, ma'am? Yeah, sorry. So the major research institutes in India are also working alongside government or individually on several bioenergy related projects, whether these are private universities or public universities. They've also made commitments to the future of bioenergy. For example, the DBT Pan Institute, the DBT Pan Bioenergy Lab at IIT Bombay has brought together scientists from 5 different IITs who will be working across different spectra of bioenergy related research and have formed several focus groups. Similarly, IIT Madras had recently worked on high energy development of bio oil from agricultural and plastic waste. And so have many others made commitment. There are several other institutes, public or private, who have worked on bioenergy and will be working in the future as well. These were a few examples of those. As a major part of the project, as a major part of the project, we worked alongside researchers who engaged in several deep dive sessions and explored and prioritized some research themes to work on. Here are a few. Here are the 7 research themes which were prioritized by the researchers, under which the UK and India could collaborate. These are rice and other agricultural residues, waste and circular economy, algae biofuels and biochemicals, anaerobic digestion, fermentation, gasification, biorefinery, and chemicals. These topics will be further discussed in detail by the researchers in this event. Thank you.
Rathi.
Thank you, Bhavika.
Thank you.
Okay, so the next presentation that we have this morning is from Rob Valentine at Bruntwood, who's going to give us some perspectives from their adjacent foundation company around promoting innovation internationally, with particular experience in India, but also elsewhere. So how to support innovation and commercialization. Rob, over to you.
Thanks, Patricia. I don't actually have a presentation, so I was just going to talk through a little bit about our approach, if that's okay. Most of you won't know who Bruntwood are, so I thought if I start with that. So Bruntwood are a privately owned property company, and we started our business about 46 years ago here in Manchester, where I'm coming from today. And the founder of Bruntwood is a chap called Michael Oglesby, who actually was an alumni from Aston University. So Mike started this business. It was with £50,000 worth of capital, and it proved pretty successful. And it's a business that's been focused around investing in our regional cities, strategically investing in our regional cities, because he always believed that our regional cities have underperformed as against London, and he wanted to readdress much of that balance. And over the years, it's a business that's kind of thrived within places like Manchester, Leeds, Birmingham, and Liverpool, and now stretching out to Cambridge, Oxford, Glasgow, and Edinburgh, and other places. It's a business that's always been focused around partnerships. So we work a lot with local authorities, health trusts, and many universities, and delivering commercial space in city centres, but wider afield into, and over the last 10 years, partnering with Legal & General as a 50-50 JV, creating a new business called Bruntwood SciTech, which invests in innovation corridors and centres in and around our regional cities. So we've been one of the driving forces in Manchester around the Oxford Road corridor and delivering the innovation offer there, which has been highly successful. In Birmingham was an area which falls under my responsibility. We're delivering in partnership with the University of Birmingham Health Partners, the BHIC, which is Birmingham Health Innovation Campus, which is now currently being under construction, is going to deliver about 850,000 square foot of life science research campus adjacent to the university, where it hopes to mix the clinicians and all the expertise that's coming out of the university with those of private business, creating and testing new drugs and so forth. So it's a little bit about sort of our ethos. We're privately owned. As I said, in business for about 45 years, we have a gross value of about 1.2 billion and a development pipeline of a further 1 billion. What's quite interesting about our business is that the Oglesby Charitable Trust, the OTC as we call it, owns 25% of the business. So that's something that Mike unfortunately passed away a couple of years ago, set up the Oglesby Family Trust, and he ensured that the long-term sustainability of that trust by giving it 25% ownership of Bruntwood, the Bruntwood Group, and that's a particularly powerful tool because that generates several millions of pounds worth of revenue for the Oglesby Charitable Trust to channel into good causes. And much of the work that's undertaken by the Oglesby Family Trust is delivered in the UK, as you might expect, and quite often in the cities that we find ourselves. We understand the importance of inclusivity in our cities, the importance of culture, and the importance of delivering a sustainable environment. So those are the sort of charities, and a wide-ranging number of charities that we support. And we do, and Mike Oglesby was conscious that there are a number of global challenges as well. He did did quite a lot. Somebody got the microphone switched on.
Sorry, can we ensure all mics are off, please?
Rob, sorry, your microphone is off.
Sorry, apologies. I don't know how that happened. So I'll step back a bit. So yes, so we support a number of charities in our local cities, quite ranging number of charities, but also a number of charities globally. And we've done quite a bit of work in Africa, for example, particularly around providing sustainable sources of clean water in some African communities, particularly in the savannah. And there was one particular project that Mike got involved in from the beginning, and that was through EBRIB at Aston University. Mike was a development board director of Aston University, and he was very passionate about that university, having secured his degree there. And I know he spent quite a bit of time there. And this was a project he got involved with from the very beginning, working with the then dean of the I think the engineering school was Dr. Robert Berry, and it was a project that was based out. Well, it was a project that was working in collaboration with colleagues in the Punjab in India, and it's called Atp Energy Solutions. And it was a project to help with the challenges in the Punjab with the farmers annually burning their rice crop residue, their rice chaff, which, as most of you will know, is a major challenge for the Punjab. It produces on an annual basis a lot of pollution that affects Delhi and other parts of the Punjab. And the particular challenge for the farmers is that they as you know, they produce 2 crops a year, and when they finish the rice crop, to get the next crop in, the quickest way of dealing with the waste product, which is the rice chaff, is just to burn it, which is not particularly sustainable, as we know, but also, I think more importantly, it produces some really quite onerous health issues for the region. So the technology that was being developed out of EBRIB was to work out a way of processing the rice straw into a biochar or bio-oils. So there was a product, if you like, that then could be fed, and the profits of which could then be fed back into the farming community, and a sustainable model created to help deal with this particular problem. And the technology has been proven to work, and there is a viable company that now operates Atp Energy Solutions out in the Punjab, and it's won numerous awards, and it's got some great collaborations and partnerships with people like NASA and IKEA and Veolia and others, and the regional government, and some of the power plants in the city, in the region. But what it's not been able to do is scale at the pace that we would have hoped and liked, and that's been sort of recognised and understood, and we've been trying to understand how we as an organisation, Bruntwood, given our association with this and the passion that was driven through from Mike, how we could continue our intervention in a positive way to help A2P fulfill its ambition of making a real difference in being able to process much more of this rice char. And I won't go into the various models we've looked at, but we've undertaken quite a number of assessments, working with Patricia and her team and others, to look at how we can, as Bruntwood, through the Oglesby Family Trust potentially, but maybe just as an equity stake within the business, and providing some support and advice, give the boost that A2P needs in order to fulfil that its ambition to become a business of scale that really makes a difference, if you like, with those challenges that the Punjab faces. And we want to do that very much in partnership with our colleagues out it is being delivered by an Indian team. It's run by an Indian team in India. Much of the research is now undertaken out in India. But clearly the connection back to the UK and Aston is a clear one. And we want to see the success, and we actually see some synergies with our own business. And as much as most businesses now, we're on a journey to delivering a net zero carbon business. We're a property business, so that provides a number of challenges for us. We've got an existing estate, but we've made a number of commitments as a business, one of which is to be net zero carbon for all our new build developments and our major refurbishments by 2030, and by 2050 to deliver a completely net zero carbon business. And we're working through, in fact, I just left a meeting prior to this talking about exactly that and some of the challenges we have in delivering that. And we work with our cities in supporting them and their aspirations to deliver net zero carbon cities. Birmingham, as you might know, in itself has made a commitment to be net zero carbon by 2030. Part of which, and in order to deliver that, will always going to involve a level of offsetting. That's clear. And we felt that there might be an opportunity here, one that we're exploring with A2P, that with the right model and the right assessments, we might be able to, there might be an opportunity to get the accreditation required, the research required first of all, and then the accreditation for carbon credits. Now, if we are able to do that, and we think there's a distinct possibility that is the case, then that completely changes the model that we can then employ for A2P, and we could create a brokerage, if you like, where we could bring in businesses that are looking to deliver an element of offsetting into the A2P model, which then can feed through and then provide a new income stream that goes back to the farmers and the entrepreneurs that are employed through A2P to collect and process the wheat chaff. So that is something we're looking at with our partners. To help with that, we're just working through the financials, but the view is, as a business through the OTC, we will make a significant financial contribution, and we'll take an equity stake in A2P. And that is not necessarily to return a profit to us. That is not our drive at all, but it is about being able to deliver a sustainable, scalable business, one that is a business that supports its primary needs, but then importantly continue its journey in developing further research and exploring new opportunities for that research in new environments and new markets. It's relatively early days for us in terms of this, but we've made that commitment now as a business to explore this, and I fully expect that we will be looking to make those contributions in the not too distant future. So that's it effectively. I wanted to give you a quick summary about Bruntwood, who Bruntwood are, what our kind of ethos, our driving force is what we're about, and how we as a relatively small business in the global world are looking to make a little bit of a difference, but one that's been working with proven technology and partners that have already been established. You might have some questions, and if you do, I'd be very happy to answer them, but that's it for me for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. That's really helpful. Can I ask if people have any questions, throughout today, actually, could you put them in the chat so that we can keep track of them? I think it's really interesting to get a different perspective here. Many of the companies that I deal with on a day-to-day basis around innovation are focused on energy. Rob's company isn't, and yet the work that we're doing on clean tech and on development around the rice straw, which is going to be a presentation that is coming up, Rob, that you'll be very interested in here from Moonmoon. You know, it's very relevant here. But I think the things that I get from what he said are that there's a need to look at technology, but to go beyond technology. We have to be delivering for people. We have to be scaling up and looking at where the markets are so that these can actually deliver for farmers. And I think one of the other things that will be interesting today in relation to the comments that have just been made are the potential for new markets and new products in this sector, which is what so many of our 7 different themes were about. So thank you for that, Rob. If we have any questions, they will appear in the chat. I'm not seeing any at the moment. It's just one other thing I want to say. The challenges have been immense on some occasions of trying to get everyone connected from India and the UK and beyond. And we've had some people join us. So you're very welcome to those who have joined us during the last 10-15 minutes. And I just wanted to particularly mention that we've had join us now Dr. Sundeep Sarin from DBT. Dr. Sarin, you are very welcome. We know that you are very interested in this collaboration between the UK and India. If you'd like to say anything now, you're very welcome to do so, but we just wanted you to realise that we knew that you had now joined us and we're very thankful for that.
Thank you, Patricia. We have a very strong association with UK with different agencies, and obviously UKRI is one of them, and these are one of the scoping studies which we have undertaken. Basically there were 2 and this is now final, which we are presenting it today. The overall aim of the project was basically to deliver a greater understanding of the opportunities for mutually beneficial UK-India partnerships in bioenergy. Scoping exercise was supposed to explore UK-India research collaborations through a range of engagement activities and enable the identification of mutually identifiable or beneficial areas of collaboration and areas where the 2 countries can work in synergy around net zero technologies. You know that India is already a partner and have a mission innovation program leading it. And we, through this scoping report, obviously want that any activities which we take afterwards should not overlap with the programs which we have taken under mission innovation. So there has to be a niche areas where we are not focusing, which we are not focusing on mission innovation. Those obviously we can take it up, and I believe this report should tell us more about that one. And that's all from my side. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's very helpful. Rob, I can see that there's a question in the chat from Lilia from Department for International Trade. Knowing the project as well as I do, I fear that if we were to venture into the challenges, that would eat significantly into our timescale here. Can I suggest that you direct message Lilia, and we would be very happy to put you in touch with her directly afterwards. Again, we meet regularly with them, but I just fear that we will significantly derail the agenda if we start talking about scale-up challenges now. And we do have a panel session later that Lilia will be participating in, where we'll be discussing that.
I'm very much happy to do that. If we take that
Okay.
offline, I'll be happy to communicate with Lilia. Great. Yeah.
Brilliant, thank you. Okay, so I am going to move us on to the next point in our agenda then, where we're getting to the heart of what has been going on, and we are going to have individual reports by each of the UK and Indian subject leads on the different topics that were flagged up initially. The first one of those is one that speaks very directly to what Rob has just been discussing. It's about rice, sugarcane bagasse and other agricultural residues. So I'd like to invite Dr. Moonmoon Hilidari from Nalanda University in India to give us the first of our sector updates, please.
Namaste everyone from Nalanda University in India. So I collaborated with Professor Patricia Thornley over last 2 months, and in fact with Rebecca to understand residue bioenergy potential both in India and UK. We talk about different activities that have been going in between India and UK, and also the collaboration that is happening with other institutes. For example, Aston University with institute in Philippines, then Nottingham University with institute in India, particularly in Assam, where both the institutes trying to develop renewable hybrid energy model. So those are the existing projects that we have extensively discussed. Then we have also discussed the strength of biomass resource potential in India and UK. Then we also discussed about the existing research gaps and future opportunities. So may I request Rebecca to go to the next slide?
Would you like to share from your screen, Moomoon, and I will unshare from here?
Okay, I can do this. Yeah, sure. So is it visible to you? My slide
Not just yet.
Not yet. Okay. Is it visible now?
It is. Could we full screen it, please, Moomoon?
Yeah. Visible?
Thank you.
Yeah. So in terms of strength, if we talk about India, then of course around 700 million tons of agro residues are available annually. This is the gross potential, and it's account for about 20% of India's primary energy demand. So there's a huge potential for agro residue biomass in India, but of course this is delimited by economic potential, geographical potential, technological potential. And if we talk about the different feedstock, we see that rice, wheat, and sugarcane are the major feedstock pool in India. And states like Punjab, Uttar Pradesh, Haryana, they contribute huge chunk of residues. But however, there are spatio-temporal variation in residue potential in India. So this is about the strength. And if we talk about the R&D gaps, the most prominent gap we could find is the lack of comprehensive biomass inventory at village level, district level, development block level. So this inventory is important because bioenergy is mostly planted decentralized level. And without this inventory, the success of biomass energy will be difficult in India. Apart from that, efficient supply chain mechanism is also important. So when you talk about supply chain, it should include starting from the collection, transportation, storage, pre-processing, then conversion. All those steps has to be spatio-temporally linked, and it should include not only the energy planner but also the management people and also people from computational background. And apart, one of the background drawback we have seen is the lack of private stakeholder involvement in biomass energy in India. If we compare the involvement that we've seen in case of solar or wind, and expert available from Praj Industries may also agree with this point. And I would also like to make this point to Rob that this is important, particularly in India, because to take biomass adventure, biomass enterprise at a startup level or at decentralized level. So this private stakeholder involvement is important. Again, biomass, in terms of biomass gasification in UK, although biomass gasification is a successful program in India, particularly for rural electrification. But in UK, this program started with mass enthusiasm, but it missed the opportunity to gain further momentum. However, the government of UK is again rejuvenating this program of biomass gasification. And of course, this should be one of the important component of biomass energy future for both the countries. Considering those strengths and gaps, we could find that, and also considering the current energy landscape of both India and UK, in terms of bioenergy, biohydrogen, bio-CNG, bio-jet fuel are key policy focus of both the countries. In fact, India has launched major programs targeting both biohydrogen, bio-CNG, and bio-jet fuel. And of course, ethanol is one of the major program in India. And then we also find that the sugar industry of India could be completely transformed into biorefinery, where you not only produce sugar, but you also produce co-generated electricity, ethanol, biogas, biofertilizer, biomaterials, etc. So this sector should be targeted with mass enthusiasm. Again, we need comprehensive biomass inventory, and we also need supply chain. And finally, we need to do life cycle assessment. So if we talk about energy production with sustainability, then life cycle assessment is important, because there are many trade-offs associated with bioenergy. So these are the gaps, or these are the future direction that we could look forward and we could come through our discussion. This is all from my side. I would like to thank Professor Patricia Thornley for giving me this opportunity. It is a learning opportunity for me. And thanks all the experts today present here for giving the opportunity to networking with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Moomin. And I think your comments at the end there reflect a lot of what I've experienced throughout these sessions that we've had in recent weeks, that I've been, I have to say, absolutely inspired and enthused by the zeal with which people have embraced this and have worked together between the UK and India. It has been an absolute pleasure to see so many of those collaborations grow. Can I ask people to keep their microphones muted unless they're speaking? We had a few issues with stray noise in the last session. And I'm going to then move us on to the next of our in-depth presentations. I'm asking people again to put questions in the chat if they are specific, but we will have many of our topic leads in a panel session later, so we would prefer to keep verbal questions until then if we can. So the next of our topics is around waste and the circular economy. And for this, I would like to invite Dr. Atp Jyoti-Bora from Guwahati Tezpur University in India, please.
Good afternoon everyone, and my name is Dr. Atp Jyoti-Bora, and I am presently working as an ad hoc faculty from Tezpur University. I did my PhD in actually bio-waste valorization, where actually I have worked on multiple invasive plants like water hyacinth, parthenium, and I look for biorefinery concept, and my target is how I can add value to value-added products so that a circular economy prospect can be generated. So I would like to highlight my slides here.
Yeah, at the moment we can see your screen, not your slides, Atp.
You can see my slide now. Is it visible?
It's coming now, yes. So if you could full screen that, that would be great. Thank you.
Okay, I already have full screen. Is it visible now?
Perfect.
Hello,
thank you.
Okay,
yes.
Okay, thank you. So our topic is basically in a collaboration with Prof. Dr. Richard Blanchard. He was from UK, and myself, Dr. Atp Jyoti-Bora, I am from India. So we have worked as a subject lead in waste and circular economy here, and highlighting the UK and Indian status. So in my research work, actually in our research work, I have been deeply associated with waste valorization and biofuel and biorefinery concept. So in there, actually, I want to direct my focus in one more category of biomass residue, that is the invasive plants. These invasive plants, they are actually highly infiltrate into the natural vegetations. So those bio waste, actually these invasive plants, they are grown at a rate of around 15 to 25 ton per hectare, and the sugar content of those invasive plants, I have worked on 10 plants, they are around 35 to 40 gram per liter of per 100 gram of biomass sugars, 40 gram of sugar per 100 gram of biomass. And the lignin content of those invasive plants is around 8% to 20% of lignin content was available there. So what I would like to say, actually, based on our topic, so in Government of India basically emphasized, they had designed various policies where they have tried to emphasize the prospect of waste circular economy through waste waste management plan. So there was this policy of Swachh Bharat Abhiyan from 2014. It has got a huge momentum. There they have designed various biodegradable waste management plan, plastic waste management plan, grey water waste management plan, and fecal waste management water plan. So in there, actually what they have done, they try to add value to those waste and they want that to use as a resource. So there was another one scheme, that is Govardhan waste to wealth scheme, where they were trying to actually convert this waste into wealth through various energy generation or various fertilizer or farm compost kind of thing. So government of India is providing a lot of scope for the startup companies, and they're also providing funding to a lot of academic institution in past these 7 years, and the works are also going in field-based work. And in this context, the two ministry, like Ministry of MNRE and Ministry of Jal Shakti, they are investing a lot of amount in, actually in May 21st, they have they have thought of utilizing various industrial and agricultural waste residue from biomass, and they want to co-generate it with sugar mills industry, and they have given a lot of subsidy also for each amount of megawatt electricity generation. So after that, on August 21, they were trying to convert this organic waste to energy, biomethanation technology, and from biomethanation technology, they are targeting towards compressed biogas, and for again, from circular economy point of view, they were trying to utilize those vermi waste and vermi compost and sell, so that the economy can be generated. And those things are actually working in, from Assam point of view, I can definitely say this biogasification and biofuel from Numaligarh refinery, they are working with in implementing a huge pilot bioethanol plant in Golaghat district with the Finland government, with a Finland company. So what they are targeting on bamboo as a bio waste resource, because bamboo also has got a huge potential in India. After China, I feel it's India in Assam Northeast sector, the bamboo is widely available. So this also can be used as a resource for various bioproduct generation. So existing project area rightly working here, the government is always making a point that we follow the sustainable development goal here, and we by taking this goal in mind, this kind of technology is now being developed in various village communities, like IoT integrated technology development in waste management and renewable energy. So here actually what they do, they check various parameters with the help of IoT integrated technology. So definitely my previous speaker has already been mentioned about the importance of supply chain management. Definitely the big companies and the multinational companies like Oil India and Praj, like various bio oil industries, they are working on this renewable energy, but the participation of private stakeholder is very limited here. So a better strategic utilization of this bio waste to bioenergy resources with the help of supply chain management and the participation of private stakeholder can definitely go a long way from Indian prospect point of view. And from academic institution also, the pilot scale and the industry collaboration is needed. Many places it has been already started, but more need to come, so that people get the motivations that they can come out and start up their own ventures in this sector. So from circular economy point of view, the IITs, various CSR lab, local government and administration bodies are also working here, like various district heads and all. They are working to manage this waste management and how they can convert this waste to energy. So these type of works are already going in various taluks and district level places. So with this, some research collaboration that has already been mentioned, I have highlighted here. And I always wish that definitely apart from this bioenergy, bio waste can also be channelized in a better way, so that we can look for we can emphasize and we can actually develop rural industrializations, so that economic point of view also they become sustainable. Thank you.
Thank you, Arip. Very helpful. And we are going to quickly move on to our next speaker, who is Dr. Jessica Adams. Jessica is from IBERS at Aberystwyth University in the UK and is going to focus on algal biofuels and biochemicals. Jessica, over to you.
Thank you very much. So I want to say initially good morning and good afternoon, respectively. I also just want to put a disclaimer that for some reason my internet dropped out a couple of minutes ago, and I'm really hoping it doesn't happen again in the next 5 minutes, but apologies if it does. So in our group, we were looking at the algae for biofuels and biochemicals. And we identified there were 6 gaps that we found within the research, which we felt were suitable for future collaboration. So I just want to talk through these a little bit more in my time. So this is microalgae and macroalgae that we've been looking at. Though the first point is predominantly microalgae. And that was the idea of using carbon dioxide rich industrial waste streams, such as waste gases, but also potentially liquid streams, and using these to improve the growth rates of the algae, and also to at the same time reduce negative industrial impacts on the environment. So taking what could be a problematic waste stream and using it. The idea is we'd be collaborating with industry, but different industries would have different requirements. So it wouldn't be a one sort of model fits all. It would be a sort of very much of a collaborative effect with a circular economy focused approach here. And then the idea is that we'd be looking predominantly about biomass yields, particularly for biofuels or energy, because productivities currently aren't very economic. The next one was looking at sort of the actual algae themselves and developing them so they're a bit more suitable for use. So we were looking at both synthetic biology and traditional breeding techniques. So synthetic biology approaches are quite new still, but they are fantastic tools, so they can help you sort of develop innovative strategies which don't necessarily occur in nature. It's also worth pointing out that there are very few strains or species of microalgae and macroalgae that have been studied for biofuels and biochemical production. There's an enormous range of algae out there which has not really been studied. It's very, very diverse in its composition, in its sort of habitat or environment where you find it, and its response to environmental challenges, and also in its composition, its metabolites, and so on. So sort of examining that, and also looking at the pathways that are actually there, and seeing if we could alter them using synthetic biology. Can we improve some of the pathway efficiencies particularly, and then sort of develop biomass which is sort of producing a higher proportion of the compounds of interest, particularly those for energy generation here. For macroalgae, for seaweeds, we'd be thinking more about traditional breeding, because if you're deploying offshore, you don't want any modified genetics getting into the wild population here. But you can use synthetic breeding techniques to actually sort of help you target when you're doing your breeding. So there's overlap there for both types of algae. For the third point, initial handling and pre-treatment, both macro and microalgae have a very high moisture content or water content, and this means that they will degrade rapidly after you've harvested them. So we need to be looking at storage, we need to be looking at pre-treatment strategies, and these need to be quite innovative and definitely energy efficient as well. So look at different harvesting techniques, looking at maintaining the quality and looking at the initial processing steps, and then but how this will sort of go on downstream. So we want to be able to minimize downstream processing requirements at the same time. So my notes here say cost-effective extraction of relevant energy components. So really sort of looking at the again, it's all about circular economy as well. Product diversification here is just the microalgae is so much more than biodiesel, and macroalgae is more than a nuisance bloom that washes up on the beach, or sort of a novel food ingredient. It's got so much great, massive scope there for all sorts of different energy vectors we could be producing. We could be looking at short chain fatty acids. We could be looking at different alcohols. We could be looking at biomethane, biohydrogen, but also we could be looking at things like jet fuels, hydrocarbons, bio oils, polymers. There's a wide range of polymers that are found in algae, which you don't get in terrestrial plants, some of which have got some very interesting properties within them. We could be looking at fibers, and the idea is that using algae, we could be generating these through net zero or net carbon negative processes. And this kind of seamlessly moves on to the next one, which is biorefining. So we felt very strongly that you need to be looking at co-production of high value products in addition to bioenergy in order for the process economics to add up for algae, because it is quite a novel industry. There are still a lot of very high costs involved. Regarding biorefining, we should actually potentially be targeting specific industries in India and in the UK, and then sort of set up algal biorefineries to convert their process residues and effluents into high value products, as well as energy generation. And then my last point there is it's last but very much not least. It's looking at the big overarching system. We need some streamlined, simplified systems to set up these facilities. We need to be looking at things like licensing, particularly for macroalgae. We need to be looking at handling the biomass and handling the data that's generated. So this is where life cycle analysis, techno-economic analyses come in. We could have machine learning and so on in there as well. We also had two overarching considerations, one of which I've already touched on a few times, which is it's got to be circular economy. We've got to be looking at sustainable processes throughout. And then the other one is that we should be focusing on cultivated rather than wild harvest algae. So if you do have cultivated algae, you've got a homogeneity of the feedstock, which you don't necessarily see in the wild material. So the species, the age, the composition of the algae is going to be a much more homogeneous than from wild sources, and it also prevents harmful over harvesting and negative impacts on the environment that's there. So I'm probably talked over time, so I'm going to stop there. I saw there was a question, but I'm guessing we'll address that later.
That was from me, Jessica, so really don't worry about the question. We will pick that up later in the panel session. It's just I will forget the questions by then, so I thought I'd write them now. But yes, thank you for that. I don't think you are too much over time. This is remarkably running ahead of schedule, so this is the first, I think, in terms of international workshops. But I'm not going to waste the inroads that we've made into the time. I'm going to move swiftly onwards, and we're now going to have Dr. Santosh Kumar, who's from Diamond Light Source and Imperial College in the UK, and is going to focus on anaerobic digestion, please. Santosh.
Thank you, Patricia. Yes, so me and Sivali led the anaerobic digestion topic. So let me start with reminding, if you know already, like UK has more than 650 AD plants currently operating, but only 1/5 of bio methane production currently happening compared to its potential. On the other hand, in India, so we have more than 5 billion small-scale AD process and plants, and then almost 300 medium and almost 200 large-scale plants, and as well as so around 100 bio-CNG plants as well. But again, only 1/25 of its potential. We are only 1/5 of 25 biomethane production is happening compared to its potential. That's yeah. So if you are further interested in a brief overview of landscape in India and UK, please take a look at the report. But so I and Sivali summarize the the key challenges and opportunities for India-UK collaboration from our discussion, from the Kickstart meeting, and as well as the two deep dive events. So one of the major the challenge is the market and financial thing. So because the main barrier is the competition from other fields. For example, when it comes to rural India, we have freely available, fuel wood in the local, and particularly for low-income families. And other hand, we have LPG, highly subsidized LPG, and very well supply chain, ease of procurement. So those are the the barrier elements. But I think here to boost the economy, revenue, we need to focus on the discussion. During the discussion, these are the points came up. So we need to focus on local-based and on-farm, medium and large-scale AD, and more importantly, there's a lot of stress on digestate utilization, recovery of nutrients, and deployment strategy, and that could generate the revenue and also attract the all the stakeholders, including private investors, and farmers. It would be a source of income basically, and there could be opportunities for upgrading by effective and innovative and sustainable solution for capturing CO2, and also production of stooges by controlling the different stages in the AD process. We can also generate hydrogen and methane. That's something can be looked at as well. So as I said, so the cost, the investment cost is also the key here. For now, like where the cost is very high, upfront cost is installation cost is very high. And most of the technology currently is being exported from developed country like UK and Germany. So can UK and India work together to get the technology support, can manufacture in India to bring down the cost? That's something should be looked at. And another key is, in particular in India, is social and cultural. As I said, like there are more than 5 billion small scale AD processes, but not much success we achieved so far. The reason because of local values and cultural, local cultural issues. And this is for this we need a strategy to spread the awareness on both economic importance and health benefits. And we need to collaborate with the local community leaders and socialists, and also gender participation is key. Particularly in India, the very low involvement of women in decision-making process. And the other thing is regulatory barriers. So so far we have the policy is a top-down approach. It's like a zigzag. There is uncertainty and that is limiting the investor confidence and lack of coordination between different government agencies and other stakeholders. So many others, even Munmuni has pointed out, supply chain is key here. And we need bottom-up approach. We need to identify the local, the feedstock strategy. And then from there, we need, the policy and stakeholder collaborations. So yes, and other thing is technical and infrastructural support. Here, supply of lack of supply of feedstock, particular and mainly like on-farm storage and effective pre-treatment strategy. And in most cases, the failure resulted because of imbalance mixing of water and substrate. This is also lack of knowledge and understanding. So this could be overcome through the creating regional circular centers and create local expertise. The data management here would be key as well. So yeah, again, we need strong supply chain to be honest, and best local AD practice, because we know no like there is no like single strategy for all the the feedstocks. So we need local based substrate based AD practices and if these regional circular centers are established, then co-digestion with best AD practices could be a potential option for the going at in the future. But that again, you need clear policy. Bottom-up approach is key here. Yeah, so that's it from my side. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Santosh. And while you've been speaking, there have been questions starting to come in the chat a bit more rapidly. I'm still going to hold off us verbally answering those until we get to the panel session, but some people with expertise are helpfully providing responses to some of them as we go along. So can I urge everyone to have a look at the chat, put any questions in there that you feel you want to raise for individuals or during the panel, and if there's anything you'd like to respond to, please do that as well. But I'm now going to move on to our next speaker, who's going to give us, it's going to be Dr. Shyam Kumar Masakapalli from the Indian Institute of Technology, Mandi, who's going to talk about fermentation.
Yeah, hello everybody, and thank you, Patricia, Rebecca, as well as the whole Supergen team. In fact, it has been a great pleasure working as a part of the team and leading the fermentation session, along with Professor Richard Dinsdale from the University of South Wales. So is there really a requirement to have a collaborative project as well as collaborative teamwork between India and UK in relation to the fermentation? I think there is a huge requirement, and both the nations are committed to adopt multi-pronged, scalable and cost-effective approaches so that the vision can be eventually be met. The vision being the robust circular economy along with the net zero emission. And fermentation technology eventually leads us to obtaining the biofuels and biochemicals from sustainable waste resources. And over the course of last 2 months, Richard and I, along with other participants, we have come across some of the major research gaps which we should really be focusing ahead. So here are four major areas or themes which could be of common interest, which needs to be focused, and eventually we wanted to translate so that we can come and meet the global vision. So here are the gaps. The first one is being that we have to really support the scale up of proven sustainable fermentative processes. Already there are several projects which have been successful to some extent in the lab scale, but they need scale up, and those have been proven technologies. And definitely support is required, whether they be microbial based, individual, or even consortia based approaches. And the second one being that we have to promote hybrid fermentation technologies so that we can achieve metabolic efficiency, leading to multiple higher value products. As some of the cases where hybrid technologies can be adopted or mixed up are the metabolic efficiency using metabolic flux analysis, so that one can really maneuver the carbon flow in the reactors, as well as adopt hybrid chemical and bioelectrochemical modules for efficient conversion of the feedstocks, And also one can look into the scalable cell-free systems for high-value fermentative products. And the third being the develop efficient ways to utilize multiple feedstock in a scalable manner, given that we have India being a nation with very rich resources of all this biomass. There must be a way how we can supplement the biomass, which is like renewable and sustainable, with the gaseous feedstock. For example, the CO2 recapture from the environment, and as well as hydrogen from various renewable energy, electrons from renewable energy methods, and so on, so that hybrid feedstocks at a scalable levels can really be adopted to derive bioenergy as well as other valuables. And the final one, which I feel, which we all feel and agree, is we have to invest into viable and scalable technologies for multiple product recovery. That makes it economically sustainable. And at that rate, the stage at which we should focus is both downstream as well as upstream. Energy storage and transport has to be a major focus area too. As few cases, we can look into the novel innovations in infrastructure, maybe novel bioreactor design to adapt to the local needs, as well as optimize the abilities at the larger scale. And we can invest a bit in the sensor technologies with smart monitoring of processes so that we know how efficiency our systems are. So overall, I feel like the fermentation technology has got an immense relevance for bioenergy, and India and UK can join hands and take this forward ahead. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That was great. Concept at the end there of the UK and India joining hands. I've got that image in my head. Wonderful. I have our next speaker ready, which is Dr. Sanjay Nagarajan from the University of South Wales in the UK, who will be picking up on some of those themes, I think, with his discussion on biorefineries and chemicals. All yours, Sanjay.
Thank you, Patricia. Good morning to everyone in the UK and good afternoon to colleagues in India. So I'm happy to present our work on biorefineries in this particular session. So I'd like to also mention that the co-leads for this biorefinery sessions were Professor Basu Saha from Lancaster and Shyam, who was the previous speaker as well from IIT Mandi. So I'd like to also thank my co-leads who've contributed for this particular work here. So I'm just the speaker here, but they've done enough work to put in all the things in here as well. So in the particular report section for biorefineries, we split it into three main areas. The first bit would be the existing work in both UK and India. The second section would be focusing on the gaps which we've identified in both these countries and are overlapping as well. And finally, from these instances, we've kind of come up with the final areas that needs to be focused for future research to happen. And in addition, we've also identified few key stakeholders in terms of academia and industrial stakeholders. It's not an exhaustive list we've given, but indicative list of some major players in terms of academic and industrial stakeholders in the report. So now I'd like to quickly take you through what we've found out in this particular section. So we know we want cheap biofuels, but we also want to make sure we want profits. So to go by that, we need some high value biorenewables to be associated with biofuel production. So hence biorefineries are the way forward. So that also feeds in very well to our circular economy approach as well as a net zero approach as well. In this particular forefront, we looked at the existing body of work overlapping in India and the UK, and we found out that it was mainly based on the feedstock and the valorization pathways. So the work on biorefineries were exclusively focused on these two areas. And with feedstock, we've got a heterogeneous feedstock there. We're talking about biomass, which could be agri or forest residues, industrial waste-based biomass, or even municipal solid waste and wastewater sludge. But in terms of valorization, we did end up with either biochemical or non-biochemical means of valorization. And that leads to the gaps because in terms of biochemical valorization, we're talking about fermentation and mainly fermentation. But in terms of non-biochemical modes, we have physical and chemical means. And some research, when they talk about chemical means using catalysis to actually convert biomass to value-added products, there is a misconception there because some research talk about biomass derivatives as biomass, which is highly misleading. So that needs to actually be dealt with properly, because getting to a biomass derivative and using a biomass derivative as biomass are different things, because both physically and chemically, biomass and the derivatives are completely different. So if one has to do pursue a chemical route towards valorization, then it has to be going through a proper catalyst development and routes like that, because the heterogeneity there needs to be addressed. And one of the key gaps that we found out was pretreatment technologies. It does cut across all the sections that were spoken previously as well, but what we think is critical in this particular aspect is the scalable pretreatment. So scalable pretreatment is one thing that has not been gaining enough attention. Yes, we've been coming across a lot of pretreatment technologies, and we've also got conventional physical, chemical, and biological pretreatment methods, but we only have limited options in terms of scalable pretreatment methods that are both energy efficient, but also net energy positive. And then we also moved into process integration, which we looked at as an aspect, because for biorefineries, we don't have to exclusively focus on just biochemical valorization. We can move into combining different methodologies. For example, combining a fermentation-based system with a non-biochemical valorization method, for example, photocatalysis, photoelectrocatalysis, or bioelectrochemical methods in that particular case. And in this sense, we will be able to expand the horizon and maximize the biomass conversion. And addressing the feedstock heterogeneity was one thing that kept popping up, because in the 2 sessions that we had with participants, we got that coming up, and lignin valorization was supposed to play a key role towards maximizing the biomass conversion. And one of the areas that we think is quite important in both the India and the UK aspect is AD-based biorefineries, because anaerobic digestion is growing both in India as well as the UK. And now with India, we know that such a scheme has actually been implemented. And then the goal is to improve to up to 5,000 AD plants by 23. So in that aspect, there is a definite buy-in in terms of biogas, because there is, I think, a 46 rupees per kilo of biomethane, which has been a definite buy-in if such a scheme's been implemented for some industries. In that particular case, with biogas being produced, the digestate will have to be utilized. And when we talk about digestate, we always talk about fertilizers, but there's more to digestate than just fertilizers, because we've got still some fiber content there that could go towards any other valorization means. So we could possibly see AD not just as a valorization means for biogas production, but also as a biological pretreatment to produce more bioavailable fibers in digestate, which could further be valorized to maximize conversion and get into a circular bioeconomy framework. Finally, LCA aspects will definitely have to be a part of all the work that's going on in biorefineries, because the socioeconomic impacts play a key role in determining how circular the process actually is. So that is one aspect that also needs focus. So combining all this that we've gathered over the past couple of months, I would like to give you 3 important directions for future work between the 2 countries. The first one being scalable pretreatments, the second one being addressing the feedstock heterogeneity, and finally process integration between biochemical and non-biochemical pathways. So that's me. Thank you very much, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Sanjay. I would absolutely not disagree with any of those 3 as top priorities. I'd already written down very similar. So we've heard from all of our individual perspectives now, our disciplinary perspectives on this. I'll put my camera on, sorry. Okay, I'm just going to reflect a little bit on what we've heard, perhaps giving people some ideas on the questions that we may now find coming up in the panel session in a little while. But some of the themes that I think we're getting here, supply chains, biomass has to come from somewhere. Interesting to hear the conversations at the start about invasive species. There was a big piece of work done on invasive species in Africa. I think it was by the University of Leeds, BBSRC funded a few years ago under the GCRF programme. But I don't think that we've had a similar look at what might be the case or might be relevant in an Indian context. A lot of focus on the social and economic context for this, which I think is absolutely key. When we heard particularly from Rob at Bruntwood, it was about how to deliver value back to farmers on that. And of course, we've heard a little bit, particularly from the last two speakers, about the challenges of the heterogeneity of the feedstock. Now, for those of us who've been working in biomass and waste for a long time, this is absolutely nothing new. We all know that you may plan for a certain feedstock quality, but you must plan for a very wide envelope around that. So being able to deal with that and take opportunities from that becomes key. I think that these actually come together a little bit when we talk about the concept we've just heard about and scalable pretreatment. Pretreatment can do so much to normalize that feedstock, to address some of the compositional issues, some of the variability. And so being able to work on pretreatment, not just as a method of accessing sugars or other things that we want to work with, but also as a mechanism to deal with some of the inherent challenges of the feedstock, I think is incredibly important. I always get excited when people talk about trying to integrate thermochemical, catalytic, biological pathways, and to hear mention of, you know, trying to integrate fermentation with photocatalysis is music to my ears. It is so patently obvious when you look at process efficiencies and some of the challenges as well around mismatches of scale that we need to be doing more of this. And yet we've all been saying this for 10 to 15 years and absolutely nothing has happened. We put programs together where we supposedly bring physical scientists to work with biological scientists, and we try to get engineers working across this. And I am going to be honest and say that I have not seen many where they have really delivered that integration of insights across the disciplines. It is a really tough thing to do. It takes time, and I think it is something where we still need to focus. And I do wonder if perhaps by doing that in an international context, where the values and perspectives of different countries may be different, we may be able to bring a little bit more into the mix, and to focus on perhaps a particular application is often what it takes to bring people from different disciplines together. Certainly in the Supergen program that I run, we find that focusing on particular case studies or pathways allows us to bring people from different backgrounds together with a very firm common objective. And if we don't have that, then frankly, it all becomes a bit nebulous and people drift back to their original silos. So I do think that might be somewhere where we could perhaps discuss what's needed in terms of strategic direction and a little bit of herding of the research activities. There have been so many different potential products mentioned. And I find it really interesting as we've gone through this process to discover that the things that are being newly thought of in the UK around hydrogen, around jet fuel, around butanol, are also the ones that are being mentioned in an Indian context. So I think looking at those products and which ones might actually become feasible and might deliver the greatest benefits could be really interesting. Again, from a Supergen context, we have been looking at this with our policy hat on as well, and there is a workshop coming up around bioproducts, where we've been looking at products, materials, polymers, and so on, and saying, actually, does it make more sense to produce energy or to be producing these instead? And the answer is that a lot of it depends around the life cycle assessment, which has also come up today, and the carbon accounting side of things. How long will these products actually be serviceable and be delivering locked up carbon, and what are they displacing? So some of the complexities there around the markets that it's important to disentangle. I think there are two other things that I want to mention before we move on to hear from our industrial response from Praj. And one of those is around multi-product biorefineries. Again, this is one of the mantras that we have heard now for more than 20 years. I think it must be close to 30 years now that I've been hearing this, that this is the way forward. I think this was originally devised because people realized that, frankly, we were never going to make this work as just an energy or just a fuel system without the added value from the higher value chemicals. If you can bring two things into the mix and you have a relatively small volume of a high value material, then that can help the overall process economics. But the reality is that this concept has not much developed. We have a few examples around the world where there are demonstrations and pilots of 2 or 3 products at a time. We have maybe what I'm even going to call lip service to the concept around the idea that we take fuel and we take a polymer, or we take fuel and we take char or whatever. But I don't think we've really embraced the concept that come 2050, the only renewable carbon atoms on the planet are those of biogenic or atmospheric origin, and they're the ones that we capture. And our job is to manage those. And we've got to provide all of our material needs, all of our chemical needs from those in order to be sustainable. So we really do need to be thinking, I think, much more broadly than the very narrow spectrum of products that we've looked at to date. Now, it may be that some of that comes from identification of appropriate platform chemicals, and biorefineries can be based on those. But my feeling at present is that we are a very, very long way off where we need to be if we are actually to see biorefineries displacing refineries in the next 20 or 30 years. This is really not, I think, on track at present. And the final comment I'm going to make is right back to the beginning, where there was talk about commercialization and about carbon accounting and carbon credits. This is a very challenging issue. I got involved with the UK government earlier this year on trying to provide some support around what could be considered green and what not green at different thresholds of carbon intensity. Life cycle assessment can be full of fun and games, and will answer any question that you want it to, but you've got to be very careful to ask it the right one. And so I do think that we need to engage better with life cycle assessment specialists on this, and to understand the potential for locked up carbon and to be actually crediting this. I do think we need to monetize that in some way so that the markets actually return something around the value of locking up carbon. But again, I think we are actually quite a long way from understanding the dynamics of the finances and how those markets work in order to be able to robustly provide a carbon credit scheme around biomass that we can actually trust. And trust is key. We know where we've ended up with the debacle around biofuels being not trusted by large sections of our communities. So we need to be careful, we need to be robust, we need to look at the science, we need to look at the carbon here and make sure that it is all accounted for. I firmly believe there will then be opportunities for this, but at the moment they're quite difficult to see, to be honest. So that's some perspectives from me that I hope we may pick some of those up in the panel discussion later. And I'm now going to hand over to the next speaker, who is Pramod Kumbhar from Praj. Pramod.
Thanks, Patricia. What I would like to give is industry perspective as I talk, but mainly concentrated on what Praj is doing in renewable fuels, biofuels, or bioenergy. So just let me share my presentation.
Yeah, we were able to see your screen, Pramod. It was fine.
Yes.
It's gone now.
I'm trying to find. Can you see it or?
Not at the moment, but it was there before you started speaking.
Can you see it?
Nope.
Oh.
Okay. I can always share the copy if you.
Can you see?
There we are. Yeah,
we can see it now.
Right.
Could you full screen it, please, Pramod?
Can you see?
Perfect. Thank you. That's great.
Great.
So just to set a context, what we are looking at as a climate change challenge, what we talk about 1.5 degrees centigrade Paris stretch goal. Looking at current situation, it looks very difficult to match that goal because we have to halve the emissions by 2030 and probably net zero by 2050 and negative after that. And it looks very, very challenging, and it's not about just talking, but we need to put some actions in place. And that's what I will talk about, what Praj is doing in terms of that. The India perspective also, there is as a climate change, we have another issue, particularly that comes from the burning of what is called as a stubble burning that happens in northern India during winter season, which creates a lot of problems in terms of pollution. And typically what we say is it costs about $30 billion annually for India because of this pollution happens. So these are the two problems that we want to solve. And the third news that is pretty good for Indian context, because the government of India announced national biofuel policy, and that resulted of ethanol blending, achieving 20% ethanol blending by 2025, which was preponed by the Prime Minister of India from 2030 to 2025. And in that direction, last year, India blended about 8% ethanol by end of 2021. And that saved about 9,500 crores. That's about $1.2 billion. So that's because India is a net importer of crude oil. So that kind of saving. So it has two advantages. We are talking about climate change, energy security, all the things can be achieved by biofuels. So these are the contents of, I will introduce Praj and I will talk about the technologies that we are developing in the renewable fuels space. So if you see in Praj as a company is in existence for 38 years, and one of the things we say is about 8% is actually now 10% of global ethanol production comes from Praj built plants. We have presence across the 75 countries, about 100 countries now, and about 1,000 references worldwide. And one of the most important thing we say also is the 8 million metric tons of CO2 is being saved by using Praj technology across globe. Of course, we're as a Praj, as a company, we're ranked number 1 to work for in bioeconomy, as well as number 2 and number 3 in terms of renewable fuels and chemicals in last year in biofuel digest. So the Praj Matrix R&D Center, which I lead, basically started around 2008. We shifted to a new facility, which is a world-class R&D facility, starting from concept going up to the pilot scale and then commercialization by main Praj. We have 90 plus technologists, out of that number of PhDs and masters. And we work on a center of excellence model, and depending on projects, we come together. It's like a consortium of scientists working together on a single project, and that's how we achieve successes. The Biomobility Platform, which is Praj trademark, which was basically to denote what we are doing. So the top portion of the circle, what you see on the diagram, is basically what we have, the biofuels, that is bioethanol on the first generation, cellulosic biofuels, which I talk in more detail in my next few slides. Compressed biogas, I will use some examples because that's one of the subjects that was discussed in this symposium before some of people also addressed that. And the bottom part is what we are currently under development is marine biofuels because of the issue of sulfur content and concerns on the current fuels that are used. Sustainable aviation fuels and biohydrogen and biomethanol. These are some of the things we look as our future fuels platform. So Praj is basically what we call as a one-stop shop for any biofuels that we produce or that we develop technology for, starting from concept, building the technology, process know-how, integration, scale up. We manufacture our own equipments, critical equipments, and of course we install the plants and commercialize. We don't produce our own ethanol. Basically, we work with our customers to make the ethanol for them, or the biofuels in terms of other things. So starting from innovation, design, and deployment, we do everything at Praj. Just to give a background of last 38 years, what we did in our first generation technologies. We started with sugarcane molasses as a feedstock, one of the first companies in India where sugarcane molasses, which is a dirty feedstock, pretty dirty feedstock, waste product from sugar mills, we converted that to ethanol in 1984 timeline. And then, of course, we developed technologies on beet molasses, juice, sugarcane juice, grain, and tubers. till 2021. So any feedstock that has sugar, starch, we can convert that to ethanol on the first generation. We started with plants which were 30,000 liters per day. Now we build plants of 1,200,000 liters per day. And overall process efficiency improvements, so zero liquid discharge. So all the water is basically processed back in the system. So these are the developments over the years we have done, and that has helped us to reduce the carbon intensity of the whole first generation technologies, and we continue to develop those further. Just to talk about the second generation, which is the topic of today's discussion, more on the how do we move from food versus fuel to a feedstock which is not related to food but which is a waste, particularly biomass, cellulosic biomass, and the technology that we develop, which is branded as the Infinity technology, and I will share some details on that side. So this is a picture that we typically, I like it very much because it contains both technology readiness level of the technology of which technology you have developed attached to a commercial readiness level. So it's not only about technology, but how you deploy that technology to make it a commercial reality. So if you look at our second generation technology, we started around 2008 on development side. We built our pilot plant around 2009 of 1 ton per day. So we went through all the technology proof of concept, bench scale, lab scale, and around 2015, we built our first demonstration plant, which is 12 tons per day of biomass to be converted to ethanol, and typically 3,000 liters or 3,500 liters per day of ethanol that this plant makes. This plant is fully integrated plant built by own Praj money without any grants or subsidies, any funding from government. That plant we are continuously running for last 4 years as a in campaign mode. It is attached to a sugar distillery. And based on this plant, which was basically audited by these oil companies in India, Indian Oil, Bharat Petroleum or HPCL, Hindustan Petroleum, we received, we are currently building 3 plants, commercial scale plants for Indian Oil, Bharat Petroleum and HPCL, Hindustan Petroleum, which is capacity of 10 million gallons of ethanol per year or 450 tons of biomass per day. So we are moving to a commercial readiness level of almost now 4, and the first plant of Indian Oil will be commissioned by July this year, and all next plants will be each year down the line. So this is, I think, one of the first example that where we are continuously reviving the second generation ethanol, and we hope that this will be, we are pretty sure that we'll be successful in deploying this technology now. So this is typical second generation process chain that we have. Also, we have feedstock handling, pretreatment. So it's a this is a chemo-enzymatic technology. What we have, enzymatic hydrolysis, co-fermentation, and then regular steps. So what we call is the best in class, lowest in cost, and lowest in carbon intensity technology. So as somebody said, the pretreatment is one of the main challenge in biomass because that's the step which is most energy consuming as well as what we call most expensive in terms of capex. So in our case, basically what we use a dilute acid pretreatment, and these are some of the pictures why we moved to a acid pretreatment. As you can see, the last the picture what we have shown, the third picture, where you see the biomass is completely almost exposed for next step of enzymatic hydrolysis. So it's a pretreatment and hydrolysis that needs to be looked combinedly, and how we can have access to the enzymes to the biomass, which is most important. And that's why we have moved with this dilute acid pretreatment technology in our process. The other thing is what we did was enzymatic hydrolysis. Typically use enzymes which are very expensive. Of course, with enzyme companies reducing the cost over the years, it has come down, but still not to improve the feasibility. What as a process, from process side, we need to define, because most of the lignin that is there is a what is called as unused enzymes that enzyme gets attached to lignin, and that becomes unused for your process. So what we did is basically we have done some patented our technology to use additives during the enzymatic hydrolysis process, during the pretreatment and hydrolysis process, which basically prevents the enzyme binding to the lignin. And that has given much better enzymatic hydrolysis efficiency at much lower dosage. And that's what we have done in the past few years to improve the viability of the process. Of course, the last part is of co-fermentation. So we worked with companies to develop a co-fermenting yeast where both C5 and C6 sugars can be used. And I think we are using one of the best yeast now that is there. With these yeast companies, we have worked for last 10 years now. And typically we have almost more than 90% yield of ethanol with almost less than 40 hours of fermentation time. So it's combination of both synthetic biology as well as the direct evaluation techniques that we have used. So if you look at the industry expectation from cellulosic ethanol plant, this is the development that we did over the years, but what industry expected was ability to scale this technology. So we've done the pilot, but whether you can scale this technology, whether there is a co-product development, whether you can convert lignin to any other products, additional products or the other co-products. And of course, the commercial viability needs to be there. It cannot just depend on government subsidies. That's why. In terms of plant operations, what is expected is uptime or on-stream time. They expect the plant to run 24/7, 330 days minimum per year. Capacity utilization has to be greater than 80%, and the reliability of equipment, which is one of the must thing. So you don't have to change equipment and breakage of equipments, because mostly the pre-treatment as well as the solids handling, the equipment reliability is questionable. And of course, you need to have lower capex for the whole process. So this is what, based on you have seen what the expectations were there and what our demonstration plan show. We ran a campaign for a major oil company from US. And what we see is the process on-stream factor is about almost 95%, less than 5% downtime. And the plant utilization capacity was almost 87% of the rated capacity. The bottom numbers show typically what was what we said claimed during this due diligence of 70 days run. The average yield of sugar usage was more than 3% more than expected, and the catalyst consumption. You can see the figures here. So it was much better than what we had claimed during our audit to this company. So this gave us a lot of confidence as well as the oil companies in India. And this is the reality that will happen, that is on the ground. This is Praj and Indian Oil Corporation. So this plant is being built at refinery of Indian Oil Corporation in North India. And the feedstock is basically rice straw. This is almost getting ready. So we are scheduled for commissioning this plant by July of this year. The mechanical completion will happen in another month's time. This was rated as number 5 hottest projects by Biofuel Digest. And this will be really the proof of the pudding that the technology works and how we are going to move forward. The second plant, which is being built for BPCL, is now currently under construction. And by next year to 2023 second quarter, that will be also ready for commissioning. And the third plant for Hindustan Petroleum is getting now started on the construction side. So we are building these 3 plants, and that will really give confidence to the second generation ethanol technology is a scalable technology and well-proven technology to move forward. So the Lca analysis that was talked here, and this gives the numbers that we have worked out with using a model called GREET model that is well accepted. The traditional gasoline 98.2, if you go for starch to bioethanol, is about 56%, the 43% GHG. So molasses about 70% GHG reduction, and if you see cellulosic ethanol, it's almost 85 to 95% by Praj process. These are the numbers that have been validated by a third party. This was all the technology that was used for mainly feedstocks like straws, bagasse that can be used multi-feedstock. What we did was particularly for the forest residues, we tied up with the company CCAB, which had experience of almost like Praj had 10 years experience in all these straws and bagasse. They had built this demonstration plant in Sweden to convert forest residues to ethanol, particularly softwood. So we tied up with them. We improved their technology. So we upgraded the technology based on our experience. And the technology is called as Cellunity. So Cellu app plus infinity. And this technology is now ready to be deployed in basically in the countries where there is enough forest feedstock or the softwood based feedstock. It's little different than our dilute acid pretreatment technology. Here we use sulfur dioxide as the raw material or as the pretreatment chemical. But we have got some very good results in terms of, because this is a very difficult feedstock, softwood. Even though it's called as soft, there is nothing soft in that, but we have found a solution which is much more economically viable solution. And we hope to commercialize this technology in next 1 or 2 years. So these are the mainly talking about the liquid fuels that we talked about ethanol. But what we also did was we also worked on what is called as the renewable natural gas or compressed biogas technology. So we worked on this technology for almost now 4 years, how to convert a biomass or press mud from sugar mills to compressed biogas. Starting from any waste, basically, we can convert it to biogas. So we have our own proprietary microbes, particularly for if you take the press mud which comes from the sugarcane mills, the lifetime of that press mud is few days. So we have provided a bacterial solution which which typically prevents this press mud getting degraded into gas or compost. Instead of that, it produces acids, which can be converted to biogas. For biomass, we have a biological pretreatment. Basically, we have special bacteria which degrade this biomass to volatile acids, and in the next step, basically, we convert it into biogas. So we have basically what we call as the innovative digester design, which is what we call as a plug flow with a US company called DVO. We adopted that technology for our own feedstock like biomass conversion. So we call it the best in class, and typical, if you see the conversion of biomass, we claim now currently we are at running the demonstration plant. I will show some pictures of that. We get about 400 meter cube of biogas per metric ton of rice straw, which is probably the highest that has been probably reported till now. So this is our demonstration plant, which is in the R&D center, and we are running it for last 1.5 years consistently without any stoppages. Based on this technology, we are building our first rice straw conversion to biogas plant for Hindustan Petroleum in Uttar Pradesh. The last part I will cover is about
Pramod, can I ask you to try and finish up in the next minute or two? We do want to have time for the discussion.
So I will not go into the sustainable aviation fuel. This is the technology we work with GEO. Basically, we convert sugars to isobutanol and isobutanol to jet fuel. This technology is not ready for deployment, and we are talking with Indian Oil Corporation to build our first plant based on this technology. And just to end, what are the pain points? These are all good things that I have talked about what we do, but what we really look at is as still there are some pain points, like the pretreatment is pretty expensive. It's very capex and energy intensive. There are low solids we have to use in enzymatic hydrolysis. Of course, high cost of enzymes, high residence time. And there are some potential solutions that probably I hope this gathering will look at it. Can we have a low temperature pretreatment, either biological, ionic liquids? We are open to look at all, to collaborate with institutes or universities who are working on this. Whether we can separate the lignin upfront so that we can use lignin for other applications, of course, microbes. And other thing is whether there is a reliable predictive modeling and simulation of solids flow, because all this is biomass solids flowing through this whole plant, and whether we can model it properly to have solutions to prevent the blockages and all the things. So this is what I wanted to talk about. Thanks for your patience. I can ask any you can ask any questions and I can answer them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Pramod. I do want to preserve us some time for our panel discussion. So if we could quickly move to that, if you have any specific questions for Pramod, please put them in the chat. I've seen at least one there already. But I want to introduce at this stage as well Lilia. Lilia comes from the Department for International Trade, and she's going to join our panel today. Lilia, would you like to say anything while we assemble the other panel members here, just reflections on what you've heard, and really introduce yourself and your perspective on this?
Yes.
Can I just check, Rebecca, the other people whom we need to put on camera are all of our speakers from today?
Yes, so we've got the speakers that are still available to join us, please, if you can, yes. And all the subject leads, yeah.
All speakers and subject leads, cameras on. Lilia, while they sort that out, if you'd like to say a few words, that'd be great.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you, Patricia. So, hi everyone, I'm Lilia. I work in the Department for International Trade here in the UK, and I mainly lead on anaerobic digestion and new technologies. And a big part of my role is supporting the policy development for AD across government. That means working with other government departments like Department for Transport, Department for the Environment and Rural Affairs, and Department for Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy. And another big part of my role is working with companies in the UK and abroad to support investment into AD and waste management into the UK to promote jobs, expertise, and investments, but also helping UK companies export abroad to provide the same outputs for other markets. And I just want to say thank you to everyone, and particularly Patricia, Rebecca, and Supergen for organising a really good event. I joined the Kickstart Meet event and also the deep dives, and I'm really impressed to see the amount of potential opportunity in research and to see a lot of alignment between ambitions in the UK and India. So it's been a really fruitful discussion, and I'm happy to see what comes out of this discussion now. I did see a question on AD from Haresh, but Patricia, I know you're chairing this, so you might want to go from the beginning, whatever you prefer.
Okay, sure. I think I'd like to, I think many of the questions that we have in the chat have been answered with different people coming in. And I think that some of them are for specifics. I'd like to keep our panel discussion a little bit more general. So if you have a question for the panel, you can either raise your hand. I'm quite happy to hand over the camera to you, or you can pop your question in the chat. Okay, so we have nothing coming through at the moment. Let's give people a moment to think. Lilia, given that we have you here, I think I'd quite like to think about this around the trade perspective. So we've heard a lot this morning about different research collaboration initiatives, and that was our remit on this, to look at different areas. But yet already we see ourselves delving into the need to mobilise companies that can provide homogeneous feedstock, the need to look at markets, the need to be clear on the sustainability and so on. So can I just ask, maybe from your perspective, what do you think are examples perhaps of ways that UK and Indian partners can work together in this area? Are there any schemes or initiatives that you'd like to flag to people, or any examples that you have of where, you know, these sort of things have progressed well in the past? I think that would be a really good starting point.
Yeah, for sure. So a point that was mentioned earlier in this event, I think was our second speaker, it was about kind of going beyond the technology and looking into the scale up and ensuring that people and the environment can benefit from the technologies. And I think the main thing in order to be able to achieve that is to make sure the policy and the economics stack up to be able to allow this to actually happen. So we see, for example, policy needs to be a lot of policy development in this space. For example, we see with the new sustainable aviation fuel, for example, which has just been announced, about being able to have an environment which is conducive in order to make this happen, but also the economics of having the available schemes to ensure plants, for example, let's speak about AD, for example, can be able to run, because a lot of the time these things can be quite expensive, and it's ensuring that there is enough government support there, but also the policy in place to incentivize this. So those are the kind of main areas that need to be looked at in this space. And I know of India, there are quite a few issues when it comes to the costing. The machinery is very expensive. So there is a lot of opportunity there for increased manufacturing in the UK, but also having no knowledge transfer between both countries, because the UK has already more established technology in this space, a lot more policies in place when it comes to waste to value, circular economy, renewable energy, which can benefit both countries. I can see a hand up.
Yeah, I can as well. So Richard, please.
Yes, it was a question for Pramod, really. I think you mentioned that looking at biobutanol for jet fuels. Is that a sort of Indian government sort of policy to look at butanol? Because I think in the UK we're still starting to concentrate on sort of drop-in fuels, but butanol is not quite a drop-in fuel.
So we are not looking as isobutanol as directly to jet fuel. Is isobutanol conversion to jet fuel range. So there is a chemical catalytic steps. We convert isobutanol to hydrocarbons. So that is
all right. So
yeah. So it's not directly isobutanol. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So that's perhaps more aligned with the UK approach, where you take the butanol and then transfer then to make it into alkanes. Then.
Yes. Yeah. You're right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
But there are, Richard, 1 or 2 projects in the UK which are looking at alternative jet fuel specifications. I would point to the University of Birmingham project on the New Jet Consortium as being an example of that. And one of the things as well, actually, when we're just on the subject of SAF and bio, when we look at that, I think it's interesting to look at then the need for aromatics in order to match with the existing fuel spec, which do not naturally come from many of the approved and proposed SAF routes. So the need to bring that in via another means. Has anyone else got a question they want to pose to the panel here? Or any comments anyone wants to make?
I have a question for Pramod. Yeah.
Sorry, who's speaking? I can't see a hand up.
This is Shyam.
Shyam, go ahead, Shyam.
Okay. IIT Mandi. Thank you, Pramod, for such a nice presentation about Praj. I'm wondering what happens to all the remaining lignin after your pre-treatment or after the process. What do you do with the remaining lignin, remaining cell biomass? You get that over the downstream. I'm sure you get the ethanol, but what happens to the remaining biomass or the lignin after pre-treatment?
So currently the lignin, particularly the plants that we're building IOCL, the current application we are looking basically is converting that to putting in a boiler to convert steam and power. But that is current application. So, but we have developed now technologies. There are 2 technologies which are ready for deployment now. One is biobitumin. So we purify this thing to convert it to biobitumin or biobinder, whatever you call it as. And the second one is the lignosulfonate. So these are the 2 technologies we are now getting into the pilot scale. We'll be building the pilot plants for these technologies and going forward, because these are more value additions than converting into fuel. So these are technologies we are developing. Of course, there are several other technologies people talk about, but that are not what we call as a big scale. Even if you take adhesives or something, those are very small applications for us.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm conscious that it is 5 to 12 in the UK, but it is much later than that in India. So I don't want this to run over today. I haven't seen many more pressing questions, and I do want to go back to Ellie Gilvin, who's here from EPSRC with an international perspective. Ellie, are you ready to give some final comments, maybe?
Yes, thank you, Patricia. Yes, and hello, everyone. I think for those of you who I haven't met before, my name is Ellie Gilvin. I'm Head of International at EPSRC. So I was involved working very closely with UK India colleagues in sort of the original kind of commissioning when we first started talking about this scoping exercise. And I think as we've seen today, and particularly in the sort of the questions for the panel session that we've had just now, this is a very sort of active and lively area, and I think one where there's a lot of potential, a lot of very sort of fruitful discussions going on. So I think, first of all, I just want to thank everyone who's been involved in putting this together. It's all been done rather quickly. I think, you know, it's been quite a rapid activity. And just to recognise sort of the amount of commitment that we've seen to sort of getting what's a very very comprehensive activity. And I think, you know, we've covered the sort of the main topics today. And I think what's really helpful from our perspective as well is to see that this isn't just kind of covering the research opportunities and the kind of sort of mutual sort of beneficial kind of on the research side, but also sort of addressing kind of, well, actually what's around that in terms of things like policy, kind of, you know, things like the supply chain sort of aspects and things that have been really kind of key to sort of informing how some of the discussions have gone today. I think just to add, I think, so the report, the final report will be published on the Supergen website in the coming days, and I think a link is going to be sent round to everyone. And I think just to sort of finally kind of conclude with sort of recent kind of developments, I think as you'll have seen, we had a visit last week from the UK Prime Minister to India, and I think what was really encouraging there was to see a renewed commitment to sort of taking ambitious climate action. Climate is one of the sort of pillars of the UK-India sort of 2030 sort of roadmap, and I think just seeing that sort of re-emphasised clean energy technology sort of as part of that is something that was you know, good to sort of see that's been sort of endorsed. And I think research challenges will be sort of key to basically unlocking kind of how we get there. So I think hopefully this report will provide a really good framework for the attendees here today, the wider research and sort of government and funding policy community to sort of take sort of use of this intelligence that's been gathered to guide thinking around future collaborations. And I think for sort of understand really what are the most important and fundamental questions for the next stages of this. So I'm not sure whether we've got any time for sort of any particular final questions, but I think but I think just before I hand over back to Patricia, I think just finally just a big thank you again to everyone that's been involved from UKRI's perspective, and yes, very much sort of looking forward to sort of digesting the final report. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll just give an update on the final report. Those who were involved as topic leads know that the report has been drafted, edited, sent round to you all again. There have been a few comments that have come in around it that we would like to take the opportunity to address. So it should go live on our website within the next few days. What we will do is we will send out an email to all of you who have attended our sessions, because we have your email contact details, to let you know when that happens. We will also promote that on social media. I'm going to ask Rebecca if maybe she could pop the Supergen Twitter hashtag in the chat. That might be the easiest way to do it. And when you receive that, I think it's really helpful if you can respond to it, share it with your contacts, and you know, move things forward appropriately. I am conscious that a lot of people, particularly in this session, have been communicating and connecting with each other, and I don't think at the moment, Rebecca, we have given everyone contact details nor asked permission for details to be shared with each other. So maybe when we send the final report out, we can include a message to people saying that if they want their contact details to be shared as a list of those interested in UK-India collaboration, they could confirm back to us at that point, and then we could gather those and send those as a second follow-up on this. Because I do think that, you know, I'm conscious that this has been done in the Aston Teams platform, and so I can dive in afterwards and pull out all that I want from the different sets of people who attended, but others may not be able to do so. So when you receive notification that the report is live, please look out for any additional communications asking for consent to share your details, and if you would like to do that, confirm, and we will ensure that those are circulated appropriately. Okay, I think there is nothing left other than for me to say a huge thank you to everyone who has been involved with this, from our research councils, UKRI, but also from DBT. There was a lot of conversations with both DBT and UKRI India behind the scenes on this throughout the project, but most of all to all of the researchers who have actually given their insights into this. The report is based around what you have done, what you know, and it's about you sharing that with each other. That is how we're going to move forward on this. And I'll repeat what I said earlier, that this has been one of the most positive experiences I've ever had of international scientific collaboration, where people have been so willing and so enthusiastic to reach out and generously share what they know with each other. So thank you, everyone. I'm not going to detain you any longer. Have a good rest of the day if you're in the UK, and good evening if you're in India. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks all.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.